There is a number that hotels refuse to put on their elevator buttons. A number that airlines erase from their seat rows. A number that entire skyscrapers pretend does not exist. It is the number 13. Researchers estimate that as many as 10% of the United States population holds a genuine fear of the number 13. Each year, the fear of Friday the 13th alone results in massive financial losses as people avoid traveling, getting married, or even going to work. According to some sources, for every building that has a floor numbered 13, 6 other buildings pretend not to have one, skipping straight from 12 to 14. This is not a fringe belief held by a handful of eccentrics on the outskirts of society. This is a terror woven into the fabric of Western civilization. The question is why? And the deeper you dig into the history of this number, the stranger and darker the answer becomes. The ancient Sumerians developed a numeral system based on the preceding number, 12. That system is still used for measuring time today. Most calendars have 12 months. A single day is comprised of 2 12-hour halves. There are 12 signs of the zodiac. 12 gods on Olympus. 12 tribes of Israel. 12 apostles of Jesus. In Christian numerology, 12 symbolizes God's power and authority and carries a notion of completeness. 12 is whole. 12 is finished. 12 is order made visible. 13 contrasts with this sense of goodness and perfection. It is the gatecrasher. The uninvited guest. The one that breaks the sacred circle and makes a perfect thing imperfect. And the ancient world did not take that kind of disruption lightly. Long before Christianity shaped the Western mind, the Norse people were already attaching darkness to the number 13 through one of their most haunting myths. In Norse mythology, 12 gods are having a dinner party at Valhalla when a 13th, uninvited guest arrives. It is Loki, the god of mischief, who sets about contriving a situation in which Hodr, the blind god of darkness, kills Balder, the god of light, joy, and goodness, with a mistletoe-tipped arrow. Balder dies instantly. A sacred gathering of 12. A perfect, complete group. And then one more arrives, the wrong one, and light itself dies. Joy is extinguished. Darkness wins. The entire cosmology of Norse mythology shudders from the moment that 13th chair is occupied. From Scandinavia, this superstition spread south throughout Europe, becoming well established along the Mediterranean by the start of the Christian era. By the time Christianity spread across Europe, there was another infamous dinner with an infamous 13th guest waiting to give the number a second wound. At Jesus Christ's Last Supper, there were 13 people around the table, counting Christ and the 12 apostles. One of those 13 was Judas Iscariot, the betrayer of Jesus Christ. The association with betrayal and misfortune cemented the negative meaning of the number 13 deeper into the Christian world than almost any other symbol. Two separate civilizations, separated by centuries and by thousands of miles, both told stories of a fatal 13th guest at a sacred meal. The Norse version ended with the death of the god of joy. The Christian version ended with the betrayal of the Son of God and his crucifixion the following day. The repetition was not lost on the people who heard both stories like a pattern in the world itself. While most historians focus on the mythology and scripture, there is another layer, older, stranger, and more disturbing, that runs beneath the surface of the 13 superstition like an underground current. Before the 12-month calendar was the global standard, many ancient cultures tracked time by the moon. In the lunar calendar, there are typically 13 moon cycles in a year. This 13-month lunar calendar was used throughout Neolithic times and in the period known as prehistory, a time when the goddess and her image could be found around the globe. The number 13, in these older traditions, was not a curse. It was sacred. It is considered the sacred number of the great goddess, reflected in the 13 lunar cycles of the year. With 13 lunar cycles marking the year, many ancient cultures, including those who practiced the craft, saw the number as a reflection of the moon's power, mysterious, cyclical, and deeply sacred. The Church Fathers knew that many outsiders in the Middle Ages, midwives, herbalists, alchemists, pagans, and those practicing the old ways, were drawn to this number because they thought it was lucky, powerful, or blessed in some way. This created a theological problem. If 13 was the sacred number of the old ways, tied to the moon, to the feminine divine, to a pre-Christian world the Church was actively working to erase, then 13 had to be recoded. It had to become something dangerous. Something feared. Anything that belonged to woman and the goddess, including snakes, cats, the moon, and the number 13, was held to be suspect and demonized. Freya, the Norse goddess of love, was said to have been exiled as a witch on a Friday. She and 11 other witches would meet weekly with the devil on a Friday, which is why Friday became considered the witches' Sabbath and 13 the ideal number for a coven. Some accused witches did in fact claim covens of 13 members, including Isabel Gaudy in Scotland in 1662 and Anne Armstrong in Newcastle upon Tyne in 1673. The Church had successfully taken a number that once represented the sacred feminine, the rhythms of the moon, and the cyclical nature of life, and transformed it into a symbol of devil worship and witchcraft. The paranormal rebranding was complete. 13 no longer belonged to the goddess. It now belonged to the darkness. But the story does not stop in medieval superstition. It collides with one of the most brutal political betrayals in medieval history, an event so violent, so calculated, and so soaked in blood that it may have burned Friday the 13th into the memory of Western civilization forever. For the Knights Templar, that end began in the early morning hours of Friday, October 13, 1307. The Knights Templar were once the most formidable military order in Christendom. Founded around 1118 to protect Christian pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land, they grew into something far more powerful than a fighting force. They became the bankers of medieval Europe. Kings owed them money. Popes relied on them. Their wealth was legendary, their influence untouchable. King Philip IV of France was an avaricious monarch who in the preceding years had launched attacks on the Lombards, a powerful banking group, and France's Jews, whom he had expelled so he could confiscate their property for his depleted treasury. The Templars were next. A month before the strike, secret documents had been sent by couriers throughout France containing fabricated charges, lurid details of devil worship, scandalous sexual rituals, and black magic. These were the weapons Philip needed. As day was breaking on Friday the 13th of October, troops descended on every Knights Templar stronghold in France. In a single coordinated strike, King Philip IV had every Knight Templar in France arrested simultaneously. He handed the Templars to the Inquisition, where torture extracted shocking confessions, devil worship and desecrating the cross. The accused knights, powerless against their torturers, confessed to abominations they almost certainly never committed. Of the 138 Templars questioned in Paris over the following years, 105 of them confessed to denying Christ during the secret Templar initiations. These were not genuine confessions. They were screamed from torture chambers beneath the throne of the French king. In May 1310, 54 Templars burned at the stake outside Paris. By 1312, the order was dissolved. And then came the moment that no rational explanation has ever fully put to rest. Grand Master Jacques de Molay was burned at the stake in March 1314. As the flames rose around him, he reportedly called out that within 1 year, God would summon both Pope Clement V and King Philip IV to his judgment for what they had done. Pope Clement V died in April 1314. King Philip IV of France died in November 1314. Both within the year. Both after the dying man chained to a burning stake had called them to face God. Whether you call that coincidence or something more, it became legend. And legend has weight. By the time the 20th century arrived, the superstition had already colonized architecture, medicine, and aviation. More than 80% of high-rise buildings in the United States do not have a 13th floor. The vast majority of hotels, hospitals, and airports avoid using the number for rooms and gates entirely. And then, in 1970, the number 13 reached into space. Apollo 13 was surrounded by superstition from the start. NASA was not going to let that stop them. The mission launched on April 11, 1970. Blastoff came at 14:13 Central Standard Time. The launch date, written as April 11, 70, has individual digits that add up to 13. The catastrophic incident of the mission came on the 13th day of the month. Apollo 13 was to be the third lunar landing in the program. Then an oxygen tank in the service module exploded. Warning lights flooded the cabin. 2 of the 3 fuel cells went offline. Commander James Lovell looked out the window and saw the spacecraft venting something into the void of space. That venting was oxygen. 3 men, 200,000 miles from Earth, in a dying spacecraft, dependent on a lunar module never designed to be a lifeboat. They survived. But the experience shook NASA deeply enough that the agency stopped sequentially numbering shuttle missions after that, designating the 13th shuttle flight as STS-41G. Even the agency that put human beings on the moon decided it did not want to press its luck with the number again. The astronauts came home. But the superstition about the number 13 was reinforced in front of the entire watching world. There is a rational explanation. When conditions are favorable, a superstition generates its own social reality, snowballing like an urban legend as it rolls through time. People remember the disaster that happened on the 13th. They do not remember the hundreds of 13ths that passed without incident. The brain keeps score selectively. A 1993 study published in the British Medical Journal analysed traffic accidents on a section of London's M25 motorway on Friday the 13th compared to Friday the 6th. Despite fewer drivers on the road, hospital admissions from transport accidents were estimated to be as much as 52% higher on Friday the 13th. Fewer people driving. More people in the hospital. Superstition, it turns out, may be its own kind of curse. Fear changes behavior. Anxiety impairs judgment. The number does not have to be supernatural to be dangerous. The belief alone is enough. But there is another way to read the evidence. The tarot's 13th card is the death card. Those practiced in esoteric traditions understand this is not simply an unlucky omen but a signal of transformation. In ancient Egypt, the belief was that there were 12 steps on the ladder to eternal life and knowledge. To take the 13th step meant passing through death into everlasting life. For the Egyptians, 13 was associated with immortality, esoteric knowledge, and spiritual transformation. The same number that the Christian world coded as betrayal and doom was, in the older world, the threshold between what is known and what lies beyond it. That may be the most unsettling thing about 13. Not that it is a curse, but that it is a doorway. A doorway that the modern world has done everything in its power to wall over. We skip it in our elevator banks. We rename it in our shuttle programs. We leave it off our calendars and out of our hotels and out of our seat assignments on commercial aircraft. And many refuse to say the number out loud. And still, somehow, it finds a way to make itself known. The next time you step into an elevator and watch the numbers climb, 11, 12, 14, remember that the missing floor is not empty. It is just a number that the modern world decided, without quite being able to say why, it was safer not to name. Some absences have reasons. Some reasons have no explanation. And some numbers carry things we are still not brave enough to look at directly. Subscribe to Paranormal Depths for the strangest and most compelling cases from around the world.